Hi, welcome to LP Music. It's Marty here. Hope you have a great day. Today I want to show you how to process drums, especially how to put gates on it, EQ them, compress them, and of course put effects like saturation or reverb on them. So as you can see here, you get a very basic drum tracking, which consists of a kick, snare, a tom, overheads, and room mics. And all those drums are bussed to my drum bus, which is bus 1, and that gets routed out to the console through a compressor and back into the DAW. So I'm gonna play you now the drums that are processed, and later we're gonna go through all the different tracks by itself. Okay? Okay, so just let me disable all the plugins here. And now we're gonna go through them. Well, let's just listen to the raw track. Okay, so first of all, the kick. Let's solo it, and first of all, I put a little gain plugin on it just to reduce the level of it because it's very loud otherwise. It's just minus 4.8 dB here, and then I go into a compressor, which is the 3A waves, and with a little bit of gain and slightly peak reduction. So as you can see, it's barely just about to -3. Not very much, but several, as you know. And so here is now the main thing that I always add to my kick, especially in drums, which is the SSL channel, the G channel. The E channel. And first of all, what you can hear on this particular track is that the snare drum leads into the kick mic. So what you can do here is put a gate on it. And I bypass the EQ now and engage plug-in. As you can hear, the snare is pretty much gone. And what I did here is, so this is the gate section. Threshold is pretty high here on the right side. Set the range to about 26.5. So you have to play around with those settings. And the release is rather quick. So it cuts out the snare drum out of the kick drum, which we want to achieve here. And then I added a EQ. I reduced some high frequencies on this 16,000 Hertz range, pretty much, -5, with nothing here. And on 250 Hertz, I added a little bit 250 Hertz, and I added a little bit of 80 Hertz just to get a little bit more low end. Sounds like that. Okay, so that's the EQ. And here I added another EQ, which is the Shep 73. I really like the preamp here. It gets a little bit of color. And I added some 35 Hertz, just slightly, +3. And it really pulls out those really low frequencies. So let's engage it. Without. With. Okay, so it really adds up in the end. And of course, a little saturation goes a long way. It's the saturation knob from Softube, and just adds the certain amount of grit to it. Can play around with that. If you add too much, it gets really aggressive, but a little amount is just right for it. Okay, so that's the kick. Let's head on to the snare drum. Pretty much the same here. A compressor, pretty much the same settings, and of course the EQ. And again here, I did a little bit double compression. So here's the 3A. Without. And with. You can probably lower that a little bit here. So just around -3. And what I did here with the E channel, again the SSL, is I put on a compressor, which is there, and also a gate. So as you can hear, there is a fairly high amount of hi-hat that bleeds into the microphone, but also some slight amount of kick drum. And I know that we can't get rid of the hi-hat, but we can get rid of the kick drum. And so I put the gate here. Again, pretty much the same settings we had before. The threshold is around 8. Set the range a little lower, and again the same amount of release, and it sounds like that. So now you can also hear the dynamics here, which is a bit of parallel compression I have here going on, slight amount, just with a ratio of 3:1, and threshold around -8, and I could probably get a little fast release here. Yeah, that's basically it. And on the EQ, I pulled out, so I made a low cut here of 90 Hertz. Did hear nothing. I added a little bit of 3K, so 2.5 here. I pulled out some 250 Hertz. And I pulled out some 450 here, very slightly. Okay, it sounds like that. So this is with and without. With. Okay. So, and that's pretty much all of it here. No saturation or anything else, because I don't think it needs it here. And next thing is just a tom fill. You can hear probably here. I just added again 3A and the SSL channel. Also again a gate here, because you can hear the other drums bleeding into the signal here, and again a little bit of compression, so a double compression. Oops. Okay, and without. So you can hear the cymbals here. And so this gate cuts the signal, the cymbals out. Okay, so that's the toms. Pretty straightforward, I would say. Okay, and on the overheads, I've got here the compressor. It's a different compressor than the other ones. It's the Puke Child of Waves. It's a stereo track here, so we have to use a stereo compressor. And it's just a slight amount of compression. probably use a little bit less here. Okay. And again, the SSL channel didn't use the gate here, didn't use the dynamics. I added just some 16,000 Hertz to get a little bit more air out of it. Reduced some around 7K range, negative 1.5, because here is the hi-hat very strong. So I wanted to reduce that. And yeah, that's basically it. Oh, I used a low cut here around 20 just to get out all those low frequencies that you can barely hear, but they are affecting compressor. So it sounds like that. Without and with. Okay. And now if you want to use the imager to get a more widened stereo effect, it really depends how it was recorded and so forth. And I felt that that particular track needed just a little bit of widening. It's very slightly, so just 1.4. There's without and with. Okay, just a little bit widening. Okay, and again a little bit of saturation we had before. Pretty much the same amount. Okay, and on the room mic here, I have now a new compressor, which is the CLA76, the 1176 clone from Waves. And I really start off here on the room mics, mostly with the Rock Maroon preset. It's the all button in blackface type of compression with a pretty much high amount of input gain and reduced output. It's really slamming the track. It might sound a little weird in the beginning, but when you add all the other drums, it makes really sense to use those effects here. You can see it's really slamming without. Probably use a little bit more output. Okay. And then on the SSL channel, put out some 20 Hertz, pulled out some 7 Hertz just to get rid of the hi-hat. It's really loud here. And yeah, that's basically it. Nothing with the dynamic section here. Okay. Without. With. And now here comes a overdrive into the game, which is the one-up driver that I often tell it, but it's a really simple and effective plugin. Just has this knob here, and it's barely, as you can see, 0.5 the setting here. So let's engage that. It just adds the crypt and overdrive effect to it. It's without and with. You shouldn't use too much, but just a slight amount of it. Okay. And on the drum bus itself, got here again EQ, no dynamics, so it's bypassed, no filters. I added a little bit of air to it, which is around here on 12,000 Hertz, and I didn't do anything at all with it. So no mid frequencies and no low end, just left alone because I felt it right here. And of course, a little bit of saturation here with the Kramer tape, just overbias and the 7.5 IPS setting here. And you have to play around with the input and output, so you can link them, and when you increase the input, the output gets decreased, and vice versa. Okay, so let's engage those. Listen to the whole drum. Out. And with. Okay, so I didn't use drum bus compression here because I use the outboard compressor, which I'm going to show you now. So we're going to route everything to my drum group 1 here, and the compressor is the DBX 266XS. It's a very affordable compressor, but it sounds pretty nice for the money. So probably use a little bit less compression here. It's the auto setting here for attack and release, works pretty good. It's an over easy button pressed, without, with. I'm gonna bypass now the whole compressor, and with. So just the right amount for that. And yeah, that's basically everything I wanted to add here, EQ, gate, and compression wise. So and what can you do now is to add some effect like a reverb or a drum blade or something like that. I often use my Alesis MIDI Verb 4 for that. So you dial in here some reverb. That would be the match. So that's, let's say, just the right amount. Like that. Just the reverb. Okay. And of course you could use different settings. I do the warm room setting. You can use different styles of rooms, reverbs, blades, etc. And of course you could also use, instead of an outboard back unit, you can send the old bus out to another bus, which is here my Renaissance reverb from Waves, and it has the drum blade set up here. So and this bus here goes out to my console again on the FX bus that I can control now with those two faders. Sounds like that. We can use more, less, use more sends, or reduce it. Really go over the top with it. Okay, so you have to play around with those settings. And yeah, that's just basic drum processing that I normally use. It's a very basic drum track itself. So you often have two mics on the kick, two mics on the snare. You have different tom microphones, overheads. You have multiple room mics, so it can get really messy quickly. But I really like those minimalistic drum recordings because it doesn't get too messy. You have no phase problems or no phase problems at all. And yeah, so one thing I wanted to show you now is to trigger the drum. And I would say we just use the snare here. So let's duplicate the track. call it Snare 2, pull it down here and mute the first one. And it often, or sometimes it happens that you are not really satisfied with a certain sound of a drum. For example, you don't like here the snare drum, so we want to replace that. And it's really easy here in Logic. So you just have to highlight the whole region you want to replace. You go to track and you're gonna replace or double drum track. So you're gonna hit that and it creates underneath in a moment a new track, which is there, and this is a MIDI track. And now you have two options. The first mode is a complete replacement, so the old drum track gets muted, or you can double it, so it gets laid underneath according to the original drum track. So what we're gonna do now is here replace it completely, so we want a new snare drum, and we hit here OK. So as you can see, the old snare 2 we created before is now muted, it's grayed out, and here is the new MIDI track. So it's just normal MIDI you always use. And when we hit now here on the EXS24, which is here the sampler, we could use also the drum kit designer from Logic Drummer, which sounds great, I would say. And what we can do here now, for example, is use another snare we like. Kind of play that back here. Okay. Make it a little bit louder, for example, here, just with a gain plugin. We could detune it. Can dampen it. And it can also reduce the gain and increase the gain. And you can use any type of kit you want here. Get different snare drums. Okay, and of course you could also use other drums like the we had before, and here the EXS24 sampler. And now you can use here like different acoustic drum kits, like a rock kit, a knee kit, or something like that. So you have pretty much that many options when you have another drums like East Drummer or Slate drums. You can also load it here with that, and so pretty much infinity solutions you could probably use here. Okay, so that's basically it for now. That's very basic drum editing. Or let's say processing, because we edited beforehand. And yeah, so let's say thanks for watching. Please subscribe in the button below, and see you next time.